Good morning and welcome. Our program today is the Empowered NPO with Nancy Cummings. I ask all attendees to keep themselves on mute and to submit questions that you have through the chat feature. For the last 2 years, Nancy has been a wonderful friend to the Chamber and our members. We are pleased that Nancy came back home to her hometown, a place where her father and grandfather were legendary leaders. Nancy has 28 years of international and national level experience with innovation and change. Nancy specializes in people-centric transformation. It is my pleasure to welcome Nancy Cummings of the Cummings Collaborative. Nancy?
Thank you, David. Good morning, everyone. And thank you, David, Amanda, and Shahanaz. Happy Thursday. I hope everyone is doing well in the midst of all that's going on and swirling around us. And I'm really glad that you're here and you're joining us. I'm Nancy Cummings, Chief Collaborator with Cummings Collaborative, and we work with nonprofits and small businesses and empower leaders to take their best next steps. What I want to do is just walk us through the agenda. We're going to really focus on 3 parts today. The first part being the Empowered NPO, the second part being how you can remain relevant and viable, and then we're going to move into a Q&A that I believe, Amanda, you'll facilitate, correct? Okay, so let's move into part 1, the Empowered NPO. At Cummings Collaborative, our mission is collaborating to create bold solutions that empower breakthrough innovation. Our vision, empower extraordinary, and our core values are innovation, change, zeal, integrity, and trust. You know, there's a hashtag out there now that I didn't like initially, yet I've become quite fond of it lately, and it reads, alone together. So let me explain. This is by far one of my all-time favorite quotes. And to be honest, our words really don't matter. It's our actions that matter and will have the greatest impact in the world and have the greatest impact in other people's lives. As we, the collaborative, were listening to the impacts COVID-19 was having and beginning to have on nonprofits in our area and other small businesses, we realized quickly that we needed to do something, and we needed to do something different. While the focus of our work has always centered around mitigating various types of crisis, what was unfolding here and everywhere was a wave of crisis sweeping through our nonprofits, and we knew we needed to act, not talk. So enter the Empowered NPO. Let me give you a brief history. The foundational work for this initiative began in early March through conversations and anecdotal data we were gathering from nonprofit leaders. The data was painting a pretty grim picture for these nonprofit leaders, and it was revealing a harsh reality for these organizations who serve those whose needs are greatest in our communities. This first round of information led us to begin formally interviewing nonprofit leaders, and we asked 3 questions. First, what are your greatest needs from the community? Second, how can we, the collaborative, serve you? And 3, what information will help you best? While this was riveting, we knew we had only scratched the surface and we needed to keep going. We then created a survey and sent the survey out to almost 500 nonprofit leaders throughout South Lake County. What emerged from the stories of the nonprofit leaders was this. They all felt unprepared, unqualified, under-resourced, ill-equipped, and they did not think they were the ones who should be leading their nonprofits out of this crisis. None had ever led during a crisis. Most had never led prior to their current roles as a nonprofit leader. This quote by John Wesley kept resonating in my mind, so I knew gathering the data was not the it. That was not enough, and we were meant to do more. John Wesley's quote is, do all the good you can, by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, at all the times you can, to all the people you can, as long as ever you can. And again, as this continued to resonate through my mind, we decided to dig a little bit deeper and figure what the nonprofit leaders truly wanted and what they thought would help them in their unique situations right now. A dear friend of mine used to remind me as we were working together in various projects through the years of this phrase, and he would say it all the time. And whenever we were starting something, he would come in and say, "Hey, Nance, think big, start small, act now." So remembering Chris's words, that's exactly what we did. So the big questions are who? Well, the Empowered NPO is for nonprofit leaders. The other who is the founding initiative partners, and those are Base Digital, Claremont Police Department, and mainly Chuck Broadway, Community Foundation of South Lake, Cummings Collaborative, Lake County Commissioner Sean Parks, and the Live Well Foundation of South Lake. That's great. So what? What is it? The Empowered NPO, coming from the interviews, the questions that we were asking, and the survey that came out, two things emerged out of all of that information. Nonprofit leaders wanted resources and tools to empower their best next steps and a place at a time when they could grab it when they needed it and when they had capacity to absorb it. And the second thing was they wanted an online community to share, collaborate, and brainstorm in a safe space. And what that meant to us was in a moderated, private online forum. So the where does all this happen? Where can people go? Where do the nonprofit leaders go to get this stuff and get access to it? So the resources and tools are on the Empowered NPO page that is housed on the Cummings Collaborative website. And the private online forums we chose to create for the nonprofit leaders on LinkedIn and Facebook. And because these are private groups, you do need an invitation to join, and we'll talk about how we can do that towards the end. The when. Well, the when is right now. Everything is live. It's accessible to you as a nonprofit leader as you need it, as you want it, and as you can absorb it. The Empowered NPO webpage was created for you based on your feedback in the surveys and in the interviews that we had. And the private online groups are created for you to engage with your colleagues, for your peers, and with other nonprofit leaders in that private moderated space that you asked for. Why? Well, as we began mining the data and culling all the information that we were receiving, four things became really crystal clear about why you as the nonprofit leaders wanted this and why we as Cummings Collaborative wanted to provide it for you. First thing is to encourage collaboration, sharing, trust, and collegiality. That came out first and foremost from every single person we spoke with and everyone who shared information in the surveys. Second is to foster deep connections and relationships amongst yourselves and amongst other partners or leaders who might step into this as it rolls forward. Third is to mitigate fear and uncertainty. In times like this, when there is so much that's changing so fast and everything is unpredictable, fear and uncertainty can eke in and seep in quicker than anything we can imagine. It can move in faster than water and air. And so what we're trying to do in providing these resources and providing these two private online moderated spaces is to have information accessible, which can quell whatever questions you might have, but also to have that place where you can go and to ask, share, some said cry, but to go into these private moderated spaces where you can talk about what you really need to talk about with people who are at your level, who are your peers, who will understand anything and everything that could be coming from your mouth, your thoughts, your heart, and your mind. And then fourth, and this becomes critical, especially as we're moving forward through this, and we want to move through, out of this into the other side, is providing timely, relevant tools that can guide you as nonprofit leaders to lead well as you walk forward out of this crisis and any crisis. Though this is the most pressing crisis, there are always things, we call those crises. There are always things that press on a nonprofit and challenge it and what it's attempting and trying to do. So these tools will always be available henceforward, and they can be used leading through any type of crisis. So let's move into part 2. Now that you understand what the Empowered NPO is as an initiative, let's talk about how you can remain relevant and viable based on data-informed decisions and groups that are studying what's going on with COVID-19 right now and nonprofits across our country. One of the most important pieces coming out right now is from the Stanford Social Innovation Review, and they study thousands and thousands and thousands of nonprofits and social enterprise groups all over our country. And 3 things that they are recommending that nonprofits do now to remain sustainable, and this is even before attempting to press in on your financial health and your organizational preservation. First is to know your social impact. Really look at why you do what you do. And so let me give you a few things. You might want to write this down as to what you can do with respect to social impact and steps that you can take regarding this. So this means revisiting your vision and knowing that your vision informs finances and capacity, and it keeps your work relevant. You'll want to frame your value of work in today's context, and that's your mission statement. Are you following it? Does it align with where you find yourself now? And does it make sense anymore? This matters a lot because as you rally donors and engage partners and attempt to motivate staff when your mission is intimately aligned with the response you are trying to forge, great things can happen. When people perceive a misalignment, then it can get a little bit sticky, and you want to adhere to vision and mission, especially during crisis. Also, when you are aligning well with your mission and vision and your actions are edifying and embracing that, you're serving the deepest needs of the community, and people will want to walk alongside those efforts. Now, that might be time spent volunteering, it might be funders, it might be grantors, it could be whoever that person is that's been watching for a while and now sees how beautifully you have stepped into the situation, and now they become a donor. So vision and mission alignment, especially during crisis, are critical to make sure that you know what your social impact is and you can articulate why you're doing what you do. Economic viability, and really, when looked at as a question, so how do you fund what you do? And there's always going to be an increased demand for services combined with the disruptions to funding streams. And what's happening here is that's causing a lot of nonprofits to experience threats to long-term financial stability, as well as the anticipation of continued threats for months to come. So right now, a lot of people are initially thinking financial, staffing, potential letting go of or furloughing people, and what that might look like as you're attempting to serve the needs of the people that you are serving in the community. So here are 3 things with respect to economic viability that you can do. And again, let me know if you want me to slow down, but you do want to take these notes. So the first thing is to assess your current situation. And in so doing, that means know your cash flow, know your operating costs, know how you rely on which streams of funding so you can respond well if those sources do go away. So if 60% of your revenue to do and provide those services is coming in from grants, what's happening right now and the life cycle of the grants and what's happening in this bigger global cycle of money that touches nonprofits, because if the bigger donors are not giving to the grants and 60% of your revenue is coming from a grant, you're going to want to know that, and you're going to want to begin putting in contingency plans. Second thing is create financial scenario plans. And with this, what we mean is create a best, a worst, and an expected case scenario with clear plans that are informed by real data for how you will respond to each one. And everything you do, especially now, hopefully always, but especially now, you want to make sure that your decisions are data-driven, and not fear nor emotion driven. The third thing for economic viability, and this is where some people feel challenged, is have honest conversations with your donors and stakeholders. Make sure they know your needs. Ask them directly about their intentions so you can have predictable, reliable revenue streams. There is nothing wrong with going to your donors and going to the people who give, whether it's in-kind donations, volunteers, and literally looking at them and saying, okay, Nancy, typically you do. Are you going to be able to? In all fairness, they also want to be able to plan and predict their time, and you need to be able to predict the resources and capacity that you have, most importantly now, the economic aspect and the time aspect. Is this all making sense so far? Okay, so the third area that's identified that nonprofits should do now before pressing in on other things is really examine your capacity to deliver. So what supports what you do? And this is typically examining your talent, your systems, and your processes. And so within this, you can explore 4 areas because they are extremely critical for sustainability. And the first one being leadership capacity. Resilient nonprofits, these are the key things that resilient nonprofits have. They have strong, diffuse leadership that can make quick decisions to rapidly evolving challenges. Prioritize well-functioning executive team, which has a frequent and transparent communication level, and they employ good governance practices, and model a culture of trust. That culture of trust is critical because that is also what people see, and it's also what people give towards. And this leadership should recognize the full humanity of the lives they touch, and in that, model authenticity and vulnerability. The second thing under capacity to deliver is looking at your adaptive capacity, and adaptability is critical. And here you want to consider possible changes that could occur in the next 6 months and how your nonprofit will respond. So with this, set short-term financial and impact goals along with contingency plans if you don't meet them. So it's one thing to set them, but most important is to make sure that you have a contingency plan just in case. And consider experimenting with rapid prototyping approaches instead of trying to launch major initiatives that are really going to require all of your focus and all of your resources. So that rapid prototyping might be partnering with a nonprofit down the street or partnering with a nonprofit in an adjacent county who does like saying similar, and you can expand your reach and your footprint. The third thing under capacity to deliver is collaborative capacity. What this means is you can partner with other organizations to boost the social impact during this time, and also thinking about it moving into the future. Maybe there is a better way to do what you do. Also recognize that it takes a culture that is open to collaboration. It takes a team that has collaborative skill sets and leadership that actually embraces and incentivizes collaborative behaviors for this capacity to be able to work well. Be mindful you cannot force collaborations. They have to occur somewhat organic, and everyone has to believe in it, and they all have to buy into it. The fourth thing under capacity to deliver is technology capacity. Do you have what you need, and can your staff use it in a way that will make you sustainable? Technology capacity is critical for business continuity because it's what allows for data-informed decision-making, and it's a way to deliver some of your services, potentially, at a lower cost, and what some are finding, on a much greater scale. And face-to-face always feels great, but technology is actually allowing many nonprofits to reimagine how they deliver what they do. So what's next? What's on the horizon? The two most important things that have evolved out of this situation for nonprofits is there's a new challenge out there. There is a big challenge out there. And what it's showing us is that we need a new way forward for philanthropy. How can this be done better? And how can this be done more effectively? And what's really rising now and surfacing in an impressive way is how can diverse groups contribute to the whole of bettering society? And as nonprofits look and start reimagining how they might receive money, donations, funds, in-kind donations, how they might reach out to volunteers differently, that's where looking at diverse groups, different groups, and how everyone can pull together differently to best serve your mission and vision and to best serve society. The second thing is really, really, really important now, always, but especially now. Stay true to your purpose. Refocus on what matters most and keep your eye on what you know to be your true north. And now more than ever, mission and vision matter. You need solid finances and strong organizational capacity to support the mission and vision of your nonprofit. So take the time to go back and look at those documents, look at your core values, and really study your mission and vision, where you see yourself right now, and what your next steps could be. As a reminder, the Empowered NPO page, which this is what you'll see when you get to the page, is on the Cummings Collaborative website. And your private online forums are on both LinkedIn and Facebook. And we don't want to lose sight of these valuable resources that have been created for you. And let's see. I'm going to open this. Oh, you're not seeing that, are you? Okay, when I share this with Amanda and she'll send it out to all of you, the link will be embedded there. So you can either look for it as you search through LinkedIn and Facebook, or click on this link, it will show it to you. Realize though that what you're doing is you're seeing it through my account, and what we'll want to do is connect so that we can invite you into both of those groups. So you can either reach out to me and say, hey, Nance, I need to be a part of this. Add me in the LinkedIn group. Or once I get the list of attendees from Amanda, I will be reaching out to you both on LinkedIn and Facebook so we can invite you into this group. It walks me back to this hashtag. And while you are working remotely, and some are quasi-remote, and it feels like you're alone, please know that Cummings Collaborative and the South Lake Chamber, we are here with you and we are here for you. You are not alone in this. It can feel like that, but this is where the hashtag actually does come true. We are alone together as we're moving forward through this crisis. Both Cummings Collaborative and the South Lake Chamber of Commerce, thank you for joining us today. And as you experience challenges and you identify some areas that you need guidance with, please connect with me and I'll make certain that your most pressing needs are addressed. The collaborative is offering complimentary discovery sessions to nonprofit leaders so that we can guide and inform your best next steps. If you know any nonprofits who could benefit from being a part of this initiative, these resources, and these private online forums, please connect them to me, and I'll gladly invite them into the private forums so they can connect and reach out with you and your peer group. Before we move into the Q&A, I just want to say I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. If there is ever anything that we can do for you, your nonprofit, or someone you know, please don't hesitate to connect. And I hope everyone has a blessed day, and I'm wishing wild successes as we move out and into the other side of this. Amanda?
If anyone has any questions for Nancy, please go ahead and add them in the group chat, or you can just privately message me on there as well with your questions. Nancy, is there a trend that you're seeing as far as like a common issue that nonprofits are facing right now with COVID?
Yes, and that's a multifaceted answer. So the trend is financial instability. A lot of nonprofits, though it's recommended to have 6 to 9 months of cash reserves so you can access and sustain financially your nonprofit, what we're finding is a lot of nonprofits actually have 2 to 3 months. And so as they look at, this is where we are in this COVID-19 crisis, you have a lot of people not working, a lot of people who typically give who are now not giving. And so there's a pattern of deep financial insecurity. There is a pattern of staff and volunteers having to cut back tremendously, because of the contact issues, right? But also because of the financial issues. So finances being one, and because of the financial situation and staff being linked to that financial equation, services are being impacted greatly. Most nonprofits cannot offer the services the way that they typically do. And that again bleeds into the social distancing, and it bleeds into financing and staffing. And so that's where the reimagining how you do what you do. And is there a different way that you can attempt to do what you do? And there are some nonprofits in the area who have really stepped up to this challenge, maintained the mission of what they do. They've just reimagined it differently. And so the trend here is the same as the trend in the Southeast and across the country. Another thing that we're seeing is time spent by the nonprofit leaders is exorbitant compared to the time that they normally spend. And all of this is somewhat synergistic. So it's like a tsunami that's coming on shore. And because there are financial hardships and there's financial insecurity, staff may have been furloughed, and you're still trying to reach the needs and meet the needs of those you serve. Oftentimes, it's the executive director, it's your nonprofit leader, and maybe, 1 or 2 people when normally there might be 15 or 18 who are serving in that capacity. So now we're finding our executive directors and nonprofit leaders are honestly working 15, 18-hour days nonstop since this has started. So what is happening to them personally and professionally? And we don't want to lose sight of the personal side of all of this. And there are many people who know people who have been lost to this virus, either directly in community or in their extended families or their colleagues around the country or the world. And there's an emotional toll that is being carried that isn't necessarily being talked about. But when we look at these extended hours that the leaders are working, along with the emotional toll of just what's happening and life all around us. Oh, and by the way, the kids are at home, and you start adding on all these other layers, and they're worried about their staff. They're worried about their volunteers. There's a level of humanity that we need to make sure that we're not losing sight of, and that we're being deeply respectful to and for. And so the overextended executive director, that might be a new hashtag. We need to make sure that we are truly intentionally paying attention to that. And then the third thing to me would be the resources that are typically coming in, depending on the nonprofit, are typically coming in abundance right now, are not. And it's not just money, but it's so many other resources. And it might be food. And again, it depends on what the mission is of that nonprofit, but those resources are gone. However, the people that the nonprofit serves have not gone anywhere. They're still here. And what we're finding, because of food insecurity and housing insecurity and safety and so many other things, more people are needing and deserving to be served. So we're losing finances, we're losing staff, our executive directors are overworked, we're losing resources, and now the people that deserve and need to be served are doubling and tripling. And that's a challenge.
The next question is from Otis, and it's a general question for everyone. So if anyone has an answer to this, go ahead and place it in the chat, or Nancy, if you have an answer. Give It A Foundation is looking for gloves and masks for their volunteers. Do you have any idea of how they can get them donated? Do you know of anyone? Or if anyone knows of anyone, please place it in the chat for Otis. Dave, do you have anything?
No, for Otis's question, there are different resources right now. The county is, they have some packets that they are going to be delivering. So there's some resources available at the county level, Otis, through their emergency management department. And also there are some local places that you can purchase them. I know the new general store, like Catherine, they're selling masks and that type of thing. So there's a number of different places, and we can certainly try to connect with you and find those resources. I just wanted to say thank you to Nancy. She does such a great job. I've been to some of her sessions, and she's really dedicated and very helpful to our nonprofit community. So I appreciate everything that she does, and it's even more valuable right now when all nonprofits are in need. So we really appreciate everything that you do. We appreciate you being part of the chamber and constantly connecting with our members and just being a great champion for our community. So thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, David. It's an honor to be here.
And I want to also take this opportunity to thank my coworkers at our nonprofit. I want to thank Amanda and Shahanas for doing an amazing job. They've really done an incredible job and really been there for people, connecting people to any resources, things that they're looking for, promoting their business, whatever their need is. They've consistently been there, and I think everyone, to Nancy's point, is working a lot more hours than it's amazing, working from home, but working a lot more hours. So I appreciate everything that my coworkers do. They're really, really fantastic, and probably don't get the credit that they deserve. And I want to thank everybody for being here on the call today. So I don't know if you have a couple words you want to sum it up with, Nancy.
Yes, one of the things I'd like to say is that as we move forward, the needs of the nonprofits are going to change and shift. And we're already beginning to see that in some areas of the country and even in the county. So as this unfolds, and as your nonprofits are figuring out how to best walk through this, please reach out to the chamber, reach out to myself, both, however you choose to do that, and share out what your specific needs are. We will also be sending out another survey, because the survey that we took in the middle of March is not necessarily going to be the data that best informs the decisions moving into May, June, and July. So please look for another survey that will come out. And what we want to do is to make sure that we're keeping our eye and our pulse on what your needs are in the moment, and that we can be best informed to serve you in any and every capacity. If you do have specific questions, you can reach out to me or the chamber, and collectively what we'll do is make sure that we're addressing your needs, we're addressing your concerns. And if there is opportunity or need for follow-up webinars that we can do on very specific topics and go a lot deeper. For example, okay, Nancy, you talked about donors and funding, so let's get dirty in it. Let's figure it out. How are we going to do that right now? Or another thing that is coming up from quite a few nonprofits in this moment is board members and board relationships. And how do you work with your board right now in this crisis? And what some boards are seeing is that it's time to reinvent, and it's time to rethink on a lot of levels with respect to the board. So that could be something that we look at, and how do you inspire and motivate and empower your board to really, really engage right now? And another thing that is critical in this moment, we're seeing this really all over the country and really all over the world, is the visibility piece in marketing. How do you do it smart? How do you do it safe? How do you do it intentional? And how do you do it with transparency and showcase the you now and your needs now in a way that people will want to follow and that they'll want to walk alongside you? So if there is opportunity, David, for us to do sessions and go a lot deeper instead of an overview, that's something that we can certainly entertain, and we can really get in and hammer this out with some of the nonprofits.
That's great. Thank you, Nancy.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right, so I think that will conclude our session for today. Thanks again, Nancy, for being here, and I want to thank everybody for joining us. Everybody have a great day.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.